history of the Middle East.
It's in a lot of people's interests that the world never knows the answer to who killed Ashraf Marwan.
Because?
Because the damage he did and the deals that were made, I think intelligence communities all throughout the world want to keep secret.
Sometimes history is shaped by unknown people who operate in the shadowy world of espionage. And this story of war, deception, and murder has a plot worthy of a Jean Le Carré novel. 35 years ago, the armies of Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack against the state of Israel on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year. Militarily, the war ended in a stalemate, but in practical terms, it changed the map and the politics of the Middle East. At the center of it all is a little-known story about one man who played a major role in the outcome. Strangely enough, he's a hero in both Egypt and Israel, considered by each of these former enemies to be their greatest spy ever. The question is, who was Ashraf Marwan really working for, and who finally murdered him in London? The first stories in the London papers were sketchy at best. A mysterious Egyptian had been found dead outside his London apartment under questionable circumstances. The name Ashraf Marwan meant nothing to most people in Britain, just another rich Arab who owned hotels and part of a soccer team. But to best-selling author Howard Blum, who came across Marwan while writing a book on the Yom Kippur War a few years back, and to students of the Middle East, Marwan was much more. An arms dealer with connections to a half a dozen intelligence agencies and a secret player on the world stage. What went through your mind when you found out that Marwan was dead? Did you believe he'd been murdered?
Yes, I believed very much that he was murdered. My next question was by whom?
And that's a complicated question.
That's a complicated question because Marwan was a complicated man.
It's a tale rooted in nearly 40 years of history and a distant war. And as you will see, there are two different versions. Both of them begin in 1969, not long after the Israelis routed invading Arab armies in the Six-Day War, capturing the West Bank from Jordan, the Golan Heights from Syria, and the Sinai Peninsula from the Egyptians. Another war to recapture the lost territory was already brewing when a tall, elegant, 26-year-old Egyptian contacted Israeli intelligence in London and offered to provide them his country's most important military secrets.
It was for us something unbelievable.
Major General Aharon Farkash was until recently Israel's director of military intelligence.
In our work of intelligence, we are very, very suspicious about everything. So we try to ask difficult questions about everything that he brought. And after years, we understood this is a piece of gold.
Piece of gold?
Yes.
In the annals of spies for Israel, where does Marwan rank?
He was the best. He was the best.
At the time, Aharon Levron was one of Israel's highest-ranking intelligence officers, one of only a select few with access to the information that Marwan provided.
It was a bonanza. It was a masterpiece of information.
Like having somebody
in the bed of the ruler.
Actually, Marwan was in the bed of the ruler's daughter. He was the son-in-law of Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser and Nasser's liaison to the Egyptian intelligence services. Why do you think he became an Israeli spy?
It was money, it was adventure, he was a special character.
The meetings took place at a London safe house near the Dorchester Hotel under the direct supervision of the head of Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service. According to the Israelis, part of Marwan's motivation was a deep hatred of the Soviet Union, which was Egypt's major ally, military patron, and chief arms supplier. But the Israelis say Marwan also demanded more than $100,000 per meeting to finance what they claim was a lavish London lifestyle that included wine, gambling, and women. He was for sale.
In a way.
And Israel paid him very well.
He was worth every penny.
The Mossad's code name for Marwan was the Angel. And between 1969 and 1973, he provided the Israelis with reams of secret Egyptian documents. There were transcripts of meetings between President Sadat and Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev, records of their arms deals, and perhaps most important, detailed Egyptian war plans for recapturing the Sinai Peninsula.
When Marwan spoke, the highest leaders in Israel, within a matter of hours, got the transcripts of what he spoke. Golda Meir read them, Moshe Dayan read them, the Army Chief of Staff read them, and this is how they formed their opinions.
We were very, very sensitive and aware about early warning of an enemy attack on Israel. From the first day, this was rule number one.
And you relied on Marwan to give it to you?
Of course.
According to the Egyptians, it was Israel's reliance on Marwan to warn them of an impending attack that allowed their army and the Syrians to amass hundreds of thousands of troops on Israel's borders in the fall of 1973 under the guise of a training exercise. In fact, the Yom Kippur War was about to begin, and the Israelis had heard nothing from Marwan. Dr. Abdel Monem Said, one of Egypt's top national security experts, says it was all part of the plan. Who was Ashraf Marwan working for?
He was officially working for the president of Egypt, but also he was working for the security establishment of Egypt as well.
Not the Israelis?
Not the Israelis. Not whatsoever.
Egyptian officials refused to talk to us about Marwan on camera because the information is still secret. But a number of people directed us to Dr. Said for the Egyptian side of the story, which is Israel's greatest spy was actually a double